Chosen one, stop whatever you are doing right now and receive this word with every part of your being. What is about to be spoken over your life did not arrive by accident. You did not stumble upon this message through random chance or idle scrolling. Something far more intentional than coincidence placed this word before your eyes at this precise moment in your journey. And the reason for that divine arrangement is simple and profound at the same time. God saw what you did. He saw the step you took. And he sent this message to tell you directly that what you did in that moment, that single, trembling, courageous step of faith, created a sound in the heavenly realm that has not stopped echoing since the moment it was released. A sound that opened doors over your life that no human opposition, no spiritual resistance, and no force in any dimension has the authority to close. Those doors are open right now. And this message is heaven's personal invitation for you to walk through them. The moment your faith became a sound, there is something that happens in the spiritual realm when a chosen heart takes a genuine step of faith that most people never fully understand. Faith is not invisible in the way that people assume it is. It does not exist only in the private interior of the human heart, sealed away from the spiritual world around it, producing effects only within the boundaries of a single human experience. Faith is a force. It is a substance. It is a living and active spiritual reality that interacts with the heavenly realm in ways that produce measurable, real, and lasting consequences. When you took your step of faith, chosen one, you did not simply make a private decision that stayed contained within the walls of your own heart. You released something into the spiritual atmosphere that traveled far beyond the boundaries of your immediate circumstances. The moment your faith moved from intention to action, from belief to decision, from inner conviction to outward step, it created a resonance in the spiritual realm that the Bible describes in ways that should stop every doubting heart in its tracks. The writer of Hebrews calls faith the substance of things hoped for, not the feeling of things hoped for, not the wish or the desire or the longing for things hoped for. The substance, the actual material reality, the tangible, weighty, present tense existence of the hoped-for thing in the spiritual dimension before it has yet appeared in the physical one. When you took your step of faith, you deposited that substance into the spiritual realm over your life. And that deposit triggered a response from heaven that is still unfolding around you with every moment that passes. The step itself may have felt small to you. It may have felt uncertain and fragile, and nothing like the bold declarations of faith that you have heard described in the stories of great men and women of God. Your voice may have trembled when you made the decision. Your hands may have been unsteady. Your heart may have been simultaneously reaching forward in trust and pulling back in fear, producing an internal tension that made the whole experience feel anything but powerful. But God does not evaluate the power of your faith by how confident it felt when you exercised it. He evaluates it by the sincerity of the heart from which it came and the object toward which it was directed. And when sincerely offered faith, however trembling, is directed toward the God who created everything that exists, it produces an echo that shakes the spiritual atmosphere in ways that your natural senses cannot measure, but your spirit can absolutely feel. What heaven heard. When you stepped, let us talk specifically about what the echo of your step of faith communicated to the heavenly realm, because the echo was not merely a sound without content. It was a declaration, a specific and powerful message that traveled from the places of your decision all the way to the throne room of God and communicated something about the condition of your heart that moved heaven to respond. The first thing your step declared was that you still believe. After everything you have walked through, after every season of disappointment and delay and unanswered prayer and stretched endurance, after every night when the silence of heaven felt more like abandonment than presence, your step of faith stood up in the middle of all of that and declared that your belief had not died, that the promise was still alive in your heart, that the God who made the promise was still trusted by the heart that received it. That declaration matters more than you can possibly understand from where you are standing right now, because the enemy spent enormous energy during your difficult seasons trying to kill your belief. He used every tool available to him, every painful circumstance, every voice of doubt, every extended silence, every appearance of unanswered prayer, in a coordinated effort to convince your heart that believing was pointless, that the promise was empty, that the God who made it had either forgotten or simply chosen not to follow through. Your step of faith was your heart's answer to every one of those attacks. It said, in a voice loud enough for all of heaven to hear, "I still believe." And chosen one, that declaration moved the heart of God in a way that set the response you are now receiving into immediate and irreversible motion. The second thing your step declared was that you choose God over fear. Fear is perhaps the most powerful and persistent weapon in the enemy's arsenal against chosen hearts. It is powerful because it speaks the language of self-preservation, which is one of the deepest instincts built into every human being. Fear does not announce itself as an enemy. It announces itself as wisdom. It presents itself as the reasonable, mature, responsible response to uncertain circumstances. And it argues its case with every piece of visible evidence it can find. When you took your step of faith, you looked fear directly in the face, heard its argument, acknowledged the uncertainty it was pointing to, and chose God anyway. You chose the promise over the fear of disappointment. You chose trust over the self-protection that fear was offering. You chose movement over the paralysis that fear was prescribing as safety. And that choice, that specific decision to select God over fear in a moment when fear had a genuinely compelling case, resonated through heaven as one of the clearest demonstrations of genuine faith that a chosen heart can produce. The third thing your step declared was that you are ready. Every season of preparation that preceded your step of faith was building toward a moment of readiness. Not the readiness of perfection, or the readiness of having all the answers, or the readiness of feeling completely confident and equipped, but the readiness of a spirit that has been shaped through enough trial, refined through enough difficulty, and deepened through enough intimate experience with God to be entrusted with what is waiting on the other side of the open doors. Your step declared that readiness. It said to heaven that the preparation seasons had produced their intended result, that the person standing at the threshold of this new chapter was not the same person who entered the preparation seasons, that the shaping was complete, that the refining had done its work. And heaven responded to that declaration of readiness by opening the doors through which the purpose of all that preparation now flows. The doors that cannot be shut. The Bible contains a promise so specific and so powerful that every chosen heart who has ever stood before a door that seemed impossible to open needs to have it written on the walls of their understanding. In the book of Revelation, God speaks these words to a chosen people who had little strength but had kept his word and not denied his name. He says, "I have set before you an open door that no one can shut. No one can shut." That is not a qualified statement. It is not a promise with conditions attached that could be met or unmet by subsequent behavior. It is an absolute declaration of divine sovereignty over a specific door that God has chosen to open. And when God makes a declaration of that magnitude, it carries the full weight of His authority, His power, and His faithfulness behind it. The doors that your step of faith opened over your life carry that same declaration. They were not opened by human effort or natural circumstance. They were opened by the hand of God in direct response to the faith of a chosen heart. And because they were opened by Him, they are held open by Him. Not by your continued performance, not by your sustained emotional confidence, not by the absence of opposition or the cooperation of favorable circumstances. They are held open by the unchanging, unshakable, eternally reliable word of the God who opened them. And that word does not waver when the enemy pushes back. It does not bend when circumstances become difficult again. It does not expire when the visible evidence of the open door is slow to fully manifest. It stands, it remains. It holds the door open with a permanence that no force in existence has the power to overcome. What specifically are these open doors? The door of provision stands open over your life, leading into a dimension of supply that exceeds what the closed door season allowed you to access. The door of healing stands open, inviting the restoration of your body, your emotions, your mind, and every wound your spirit has accumulated through the seasons of trial. The door of divine connection stands open, positioning people of purpose and destiny into your path at the precise moments their presence is needed. The door of assignment stands open, inviting you to step into the fullest expression of why you were created and what you were placed in this earth to accomplish. Each of these doors was held closed during the preparation season for specific and purposeful reasons. Each one required a version of you that could only be produced through the very trials that made the waiting so difficult. And each one is now standing wide open, because your step of faith declared to heaven that the version of you required to walk through them has arrived. Walking through what God has opened now comes the most important question of this entire message, chosen one. Now that the doors are open, what does it look like to actually walk through them? Because an open door, no matter how divinely prepared and sovereignly maintained, accomplishes nothing for the person who stands at the threshold but never steps through. Walking through a divinely open door begins with a decision of the will that precedes the arrival of complete emotional certainty. You will not feel fully ready before you step through. You will not have every question answered, or every fear resolved, or every detail of what lies beyond the door clearly visible before you commit to walking through it. That is by design. Because the same faith that opened the door is the faith that is required to walk through it. God does not open doors so that you can have certainty without faith. He opens them so that your faith can be exercised in a new and deeper dimension. The step through the open door begins with a declaration. Speak out loud to your own spirit and to the spiritual atmosphere around you that you receive what God has opened. Declare that you are walking through the door of provision, through the door of healing, through the door of divine connection, through the door of your purpose and assignment. Do not make this declaration tentatively or apologetically. Make it with the full weight of the authority that belongs to a chosen child of God who has been invited through a door that the King of all creation personally opened. Walking through the open door continues with sustained attention to the guidance of God's Spirit regarding the specific steps that the new season requires. Open doors do not come with detailed instruction manuals that map out every decision in advance. They come with the promise of a guide who will direct each step as it is taken. The peace of God that surpasses understanding will serve as your navigation system through the new territory the open door leads into. When a direction carries that peace, move in it. When a decision disrupts that peace, pause and seek further clarity before proceeding. Walking through the open door also requires a conscious releasing of the identity formed in the closed door season. You spent significant time learning to be a person navigating a closed-door reality. You developed strategies, coping mechanisms, expectations, and ways of seeing yourself that were shaped by the limitations of that season. Some of those formations served you well. Others were merely adaptations to constraint that no longer serve you in the open-door reality. As you walk through what God has opened, you will be invited repeatedly to release the closed-door version of yourself and embrace the open-door identity that God is revealing. This is not always comfortable. The familiar version of yourself, even when it was shaped by limitation, carries a sense of security that the new version does not yet possess. But chosen one, you were not created to live in the identity formed by your limitations. You were created to inhabit the identity formed by your purpose, and your purpose is what the open door leads into. The promise to the one, still trembling perhaps as you receive this message, chosen one, you are still in the trembling place. Perhaps the step of faith you took still feels fragile in your hands, like something that could be undone by the next difficult circumstance or the next wave of doubt. Perhaps you took the step, but are not yet fully convinced that it accomplished what heaven is declaring it accomplished. Perhaps you are listening to this message with a mixture of hope and guardedness, wanting to believe but protecting yourself from the possibility of another disappointment by not fully committing to the truth of what is being spoken. If that is where you are, this portion of the message is specifically and personally for you. Your trembling does not disqualify your faith. The shaking of your hands when you took the step did not reduce its spiritual impact. The uncertainty that accompanied your decision did not dilute the substance it deposited into the spiritual realm. God is not waiting for you to achieve a state of confident certainty before He honors what your trembling faith already accomplished. He honored it the moment it was offered, exactly as it was offered, with every imperfection and every accompanying fear included in the package. The woman who pressed through the crowd to touch the hem of Jesus' garment was trembling when she reached out her hand. She had been sick for 12 years. She had experienced 12 years of failed attempts and disappointed hopes, and the particular exhaustion that comes from trying and trying and trying without result. She was not reaching out from a place of bold and unshakable confidence. She was reaching out from a place of desperate faith that had one more attempt left in it, and nothing more. And that trembling, desperate final attempt faith was met by a power that healed her completely and instantly. Your faith does not need to be perfect to be powerful. It needs to be real. And chosen one, what you offered was real. It came from the genuine depths of a heart that had endured much and still chose to trust. And that realness made it more powerful before the throne of God than a confident performance of faith from a heart that had never truly been tested would have been. The doors are open. They are open because of what you offered, and they will remain open, regardless of whether your confidence in their opening ever feels completely settled. Because their staying open is not dependent on your feelings about them. It is dependent on the word of the God who opened them, and His word does not change based on the fluctuation of human emotion. Heaven is still moving on your behalf, chosen one. As this message draws toward its conclusion, Receive this final declaration with the full openness of your spirit. What God set into motion when your step of faith echoed through heaven has not reached its conclusion. It is still moving. It is still producing. It is still arranging and aligning and positioning and preparing. The echo has not faded. It is still resonating through the spiritual realm over your life, still producing new openings in situations that have needed to change, still moving people into position who carry pieces of your next season, still dismantling structures of resistance that have stood against your breakthrough for too long. Every prayer you pray from this moment forward adds to the resonance. Every declaration of faith you make amplifies the echo. Every decision to trust God over fear, to move forward over standing still, to believe the promise over accepting the limitation, sends another wave of faith substance into the spiritual atmosphere over your life that produces another round of divine response. You are not done making echoes, chosen one. The step you took was significant and its impact is real and lasting, but it was not the last step. It was the step that opened the door to a journey of faith that will take you further and deeper and higher than anything you have yet experienced in your walk with God. The doors are open. The echo is still sounding. Heaven is still moving. And the God who responded to your single step of faith is ready, willing, and actively working to respond to every step that follows. Walk forward, chosen one. The doors that no man can shut stand wide open before you, and the God who opened them walks through them beside you with every single step you take. Type Amen if this word has reached your spirit today. Share this message with someone who needs to know that their trembling step of faith is enough to open doors that no opposition can ever close.